So today, we're going to look at a pretty fascinating new way of teaching medical students. They're using AI, but not just for memorizing facts. No, they're using it to get good at one of the hardest parts of being in healthcare, actually talking to people. Let's dive in and see how this all works. Okay, so it all kicks off with this question. Imagine you're a physical therapist, and your patient, Jordan, he's a 38-year-old hairstylist dealing with this nagging shoulder pain. He looks at you and says this. He's skeptical, right? He's confused, and you can tell he's starting to lose faith in the whole process. This is so much more than a medical question. This is one of those moments where trust is either built or broken.
Right, so the real challenge here isn't just knowing the science. That's the baseline. The hard part is taking all that textbook knowledge and turning it into a real conversation. You've got to reassure your patients, you have to educate them, and ultimately, you want to empower them.
And that's exactly the scenario at the heart of this really innovative assignment for physical therapy students. Their job, it's not just to solve the clinical puzzle, but to crack that core communication challenge. So, this brings us to the homework itself. And it's pretty clever. It uses AI to force students to look at the exact same clinical problem, but from two totally different angles. So here's the deal. The assignment has two parts. First, the student has to create a short, simple video for the patient, for Jordan. Then, they have to turn around and produce a longer, much more technical podcast for their fellow students. Think about that. Same case, same treatment, but you need two completely different ways of talking about it. All right, let's break down that first challenge, talking to Jordan, the patient. This is all about empathy and making things super clear. And it's a real balancing act, right? How do you explain complex medical stuff in a way that's easy to understand, but without talking down to someone?
Well, the assignment actually gives them a roadmap. They're told to structure their explanation around these 4 key points. They have to cover what the treatment actually is, what it's supposed to feel like, all the safety checks they're doing, and then how it all fits into the bigger plan for getting better. You see? It's basically a framework for building trust, step by step.
So what about Jordan's big concern? Why don't I feel any heat? This is where the student has to get specific. They explain that the ultrasound machine is on a pulsed setting, which is all about healing the tissue on a cellular level without heat. And just like that, the lack of heat goes from being a sign of failure to being the entire point of the treatment. That's a huge aha moment for the patient. Okay, now let's flip the script and look at the second task. This is where they have to build a totally different skill set. The student has to switch gears completely. No more talking to a skeptical patient. Now, the audience is a bunch of other students, their peers, who need the hard technical details. So the focus shifts from reassurance to just raw data. For this audience, the student compares ultrasound to another treatment called diathermy. They'd explain that ultrasound uses acoustic energy, it's pretty quick, and you need direct contact. Diathermy, on the other hand, well, that uses electromagnetic energy, it takes a lot longer, and you don't even need to touch the skin. See the difference? This is the kind of precise language professionals use with each other. And, when you're talking to other pros, the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking about details that can be life or death, and there is absolutely zero room for confusion. For these treatments, things like pregnancy, pacemakers, or even metal implants are what we call absolute contraindications. They are total no-goes. You just can't make a mistake here. So, you're probably wondering, how on earth does a student juggle all of this? The empathy for the patient, the technical precision for their peers, all those critical safety details. It's a lot. Well, this is where the AI Copilot comes into play. They use a tool called NotebookLM, but, and this is the most important part, they are explicitly taught to use it responsibly. This workflow is really the heart of the whole lesson. First, students upload their trusted sources into the AI. We're talking textbooks, class notes, things they know are accurate. Then, they prompt the AI to generate a first draft of their scripts. But, and this is where the real learning happens, the next steps are all human. They have to go back and meticulously fact-check every single claim against their original sources. And finally, they have to write a statement explaining exactly how they use the tool. So the AI is like a really smart assistant, but it is not the boss. And that AI usage statement, it's a huge part of the grade. Why? Because it forces the students to be transparent and accountable for their work. It makes it impossible to just copy and paste. They actually have to explain their whole process, proving that they were the ones driving the technology and not the other way around. So when you zoom out and look at all these pieces together, you realize this one assignment is really a glimpse into something much bigger. It's about the future of education, really, especially for professionals in this new age of AI. Let's be clear, the point of this is not to make homework easier or faster. The whole idea is to use the speed of AI to buy back time for students to practice the stuff that AI can't do. The uniquely human skills, using clinical judgment, showing real empathy, and figuring out how to tailor a message for a real person standing in front of you.
Because when you get right down to it, this is what the assignment is really teaching. It's the skills that are going to last. Pushing back on what an AI tells you, that's critical thinking. Double-checking its facts, that's just good old fact-checking. Being upfront about how you used it, that's ethical responsibility. And taking the same set of facts and creating two completely different messages, well, that's what truly great communication is all about.
And really, this whole thing brings us to one big question to leave you with. As AI gets better and better at finding information for us, what are the human skills that become even more valuable? It seems like the answer has to be things like judgment, empathy, and that messy, nuanced art of just connecting with another person. Maybe the real job of an AI co-pilot isn't just to help us find the right answers, but to help us become better at being human.